Now let's get into it on the other side.
It's like a throwback. I'm in black and white. Hey, don't adjust your monitors. I'm just trying to find new stuff to mess with. I just got to do it, right? It's technology and it's really interesting to me. So anyway, there's that. Hey, so real quick before we get started on this wonderful journey tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm Jeffrey Lodick. I'm the host of On the Other Side, Leadership After Transition, where we don't tell you how to transition. We just share experiences with those who have done it before in hopes to provide some type of guidance for you if you're struggling to figure out what's next in your life. So before we get into it on the other side, I'd like to do something real quick and talk about Proper Patriot real quick. Listen, Proper Patriot, I'm wearing this stuff. I got to tell you, a few months back, I looked at myself and I was kind of getting a little belly. I got into this shirt. I can't see my belly button anymore, which is important because as you gain weight, you start to see this big hole. I'm not going to guarantee it's going to leave for you, but these shirts are comfortable. I love it. And they got coffee, right? Who's Proper Patriot, right? What I'm going to do right quick. Yeah, I'm going to throw this little thing up here for you so you can see the www.properpatriot.com. And I just want to tell you, it's a really great veteran-owned organization who believes in the American spirit. I mean, we do great things. Veteran-owned patriotic apparel company that sells coffee. By the way, if you know me, you know I don't need coffee. So my family thanks you, Justin, for the coffee. Hey, look, it's a simple idea right here. The values. Watch this stuff, man. I'm going to show you something pretty cool, right? The values here. I got to use my hands the right way. Family, tradition, and self-reliance. The American family is the background or the building blocks of our nation. Tradition is what keeps us united, and self-reliance makes us strong. Go to www.properpatriot.com and check it out. Now, that being said, let me throw you this way real quick. I'm going to show you something tonight. I'm doing all kind of new stuff. Look at this. Over my left shoulder is Hugh Campbell. He's our guest, man. I'm so excited to finally, listen, this is no joke. It's been a long time coming. Hugh Campbell, if you're not familiar with him, you probably don't live in Tampa. But if you don't live in Tampa, you're probably familiar with him because he's everywhere, man. Listen, this dude has been an amazing, mentor from afar for me. He's an inspiration to many business entrepreneurs that are trying to get into business from the Tampa area. You got to see what he's doing from being in the chambers of commerce, just the different boards he sits on, AC4S Technologies. That's where I first met him probably, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. I can't count, but he's just doing amazing things from a military career to being employed, to learning some things, to being involved in the chamber, to opening up a business. I mean, just the things that he does in the Tampa ecosystem for veterans. Great. He's a great person to look up to because he's doing it great for our community, but more importantly for the world. The guy is just a great guy who does great things. And now that I'm done yapping about him, I'm going to bring him on. And before I do, I mean, I'm going to do this, Hugh. Normally I bring people on and then I do this clap thing. I got this clap thing, so I'm going to clap and then bring you on. Ready? Check this out, man. You get your own applause before you even step on the stage, man. This is how we do it on the other side, right? So anyhow, here we go. Without further ado, Mr. Hugh Campbell. What's going on, Hugh? How you doing, man?
Oh, my goodness. That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Thanks for having me, Jeffrey. I appreciate it.
Man, I don't know if people would get the appreciation of how long you and I've talked about coming on the show and just, I don't know that people can truly understand the level of busy that you are, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's really exciting for me to watch it. I mean, it's frustrating because I want to talk to you. I mean, you're a great guy to talk to, a wealth of knowledge for a million different things, but here you are, you're circling the globe, man.
Well, we finally made it happen. It's been, it's a long time coming. I agree with, but hey, here we are. We made it happen.
Here we are, and you're exactly right. Hey, so as we get started, what I kind of want to do is just so we can make you a little bit relatable to the folks that are out there that are listening, right? I kind of want to just go a little bit through your career. What was the sign moment that you decided to come into the military? Let's talk a little bit about that career so we can kind of get an understanding of what you did throughout the time. And then when it was time to get out, let's talk about that moment or that time, the process, and then we'll kind of get into the things that you've been doing over the course of the last few years as you've been, from what I look at, I'm saying he's building an empire, but nonetheless, I mean, good on you. I'm trying to build an empire starting with one. I'm the building block.
Hey, man. Hey, that's how we started, with one. Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of the background. Particularly for this audience, I enlisted in the military, right? And A little bit different. I went in with the express purpose to go to the prep school for West Point, because I wasn't sure about this whole military thing, right? And my dad was a minister. We didn't have anybody really in our family that was military, and as I tell people, I'm a lover, not a fighter, right? So I had to figure out this whole military thing. So I enlisted to go to the prep school, did that, did West Point for 4 years, then came out active duty Army for 10. Wonderful, wonderful experience. Learned a lot. We went and did a lot of things. You know, back in those days, that desert. You remember Desert Shield, Desert Storm? Remember that?
I heard about it, in my history book. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that young, man.
Yeah, right. But it was a really, really great experience, and it led me to this fantastic organization called JCSE, the Joint Communication Support Element, which really changed my life, and it got me really exposed to, truly the joint environment, and that was just, life-changing thing for me. One of the big things was that I had an opportunity to come here to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa Bay community, which is a fantastic community. And MacDill itself is such a wonderful place because of, the organizations that are there and the mission sets, right? Between U.S. Central Command, and all that they have been involved in for the last 30 plus years, and the U.S. Special Operations Command from the inception, in coming out of Desert One in Iran, to the global war on terrorism and tracking down bad guys and all the things that they do. It's just a wonderful community, and the mission set and all of those things. I must say, I'm really happy to talk about one of my classmates from West Point. Eric Carilla is going to pin on his 4th star and take over U.S. Central Command in a few weeks. So a bunch of my classmates are going to descend on Tampa in the convention center on April 1st at 1 o'clock, when my classmate Eric Carilla will take U.S. Central Command. So that's a great thing.
That's an amazing thing, man. That's actually, it's really nice to know. When you look at your peer group, I think it's really cool. Even for me, there's no animosity towards it. I think there's so many people that hate on other people. I don't. I love it. I congratulate them. Just to see the folks that were in your peer group that are successful. It's not a matter of could I have, should I have. It doesn't matter. I love the fact that it's uplifting, because it just shows the people you were around. How does that benefit you, right? Where are you at now? And the things, it's just great. Good for him. Congratulations.
Yeah, power of association. So came here to MacDill Air Force Base, and then the power of the .com bubble pulled me out of the active duty, but I did stay in the reserve component. So JCSE is a really unique kind of organization, because it's joint, but it has reserve component organizations underneath it. And so I was able to stay in the organization, but transition to the reserve component, which was really crazy as an Army guy, transitioning to the Air National Guard, which was just, complete culture shock, right? But the great news about that was we were able to apply the leadership lessons that we learned, and able to kind of elevate and get that organization to the next level as well. So that's kind of the military thing. I finished up in the Air Force Reserves. My last job was a top level network defense for the DoD. So the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines all reported to us, and then we worked with the NSA for the offensive capabilities, and Homeland Security for the civilian side. So it was really neat, and the exposure there, and seeing how we operate on a national level from a cybersecurity perspective. That organization has now since turned into U.S. Cyber Command. And so it was really neat to see that. So,
yeah, and as we get into what you're doing, and kind of what you did when you got out, it'll actually play a role, because it's interesting, those organizations that you just made mention, just the 2 of those organizations are kind of up the alley of what you're doing right about now. Now, I got to tell you, and I'm telling the people watching as well as you, because I'm that guy. So on the slide that I used to put it out there, that to promote that you were coming on, I put Army veteran. hey, look, I got to tell you, I could have put both, and I didn't. I hid the one because I'm an Army veteran. I was like, I want to share this. I don't want to be like, he went to the darks. And no, I'm kidding, man. That's. I think it's really interesting that you got. I mean, because there is a huge difference, right? I mean,
oh my goodness,
people that don't. I mean, I got blessed to be in joint organizations for a large part of my career, and I say blessed, and I mean directly because it is a great opportunity to actually see how culturally different the services really are. So when you have somebody who's never touched raised their hand to serve, and they look at, and you're just a soldier, a soldier, Marine's a Marine, and it's so different, man. I mean, that's everything, but hey, you survived, and that's a good thing. So I guess I got a question. So what was your job? Like when you came in, were you an IT type guy? I mean, obviously when you came in, computers aren't what they are today. The networks aren't what they are today. All this stuff changed. Were you directly a communicator coming in, or did you have to do some branching and all that good stuff along the way?
And well, graduating from school, West Point, yeah. So my, I came out in Signal Corps, and all of my studies at school were all about electrical engineering and managing technical people, all of those things. So it was a very natural fit for me. And so, yeah, the Signal Corps was where it's at, and it's hot, right?
Yeah. Oh, and it's crazy. I mean, because I don't. It's interesting, right? I'll say it's interesting because in that time when you came in, what year did you come in? You came in the late 80s. Is that when it was?
I enlisted in 83 when I graduated. When I came out as a young second lieutenant, I was 1988. So late
sure.
80s.
So 88, and then you look at it, and what 88 is to 22. That's a significant difference in a technological world, right? So I mean, I don't know if you were that forward thinking. Not saying that you can't be, but I mean, it went in 88. Could you even have imagined where we are today technologically? I mean, was that something you were like, we're going to be there one day, and I want to be on the leading edge of this?
Well, it's hard to predict the future, but I will tell you, if we studied a lot of military campaigns, and there's an old saying that a general is really not leading any army unless he can communicate, right? Whether it's flank to the left, and we're using semaphore flags back in the the 1800s and 1700s, or we're using satellites and everything that we use now to move forces in an offensive nature and cyber, right? I mean, so it's all about command and controlling the forces, whatever it is that you're trying to get done, and communications is where it's at. And that it's been many centuries of that, right? So I just figured it was a good place to be because, we talked about this. If we made, I don't know how much time we have, but somebody asked me about Ukraine, and what I went and talked about was how technology has changed over the years, but what we're doing is essentially the same. So just bear with me for just a second.
Sure. Well, so, we got all the time you want, man. It's on you.
So if you go back in history and you look at, we used to soften up the enemy with, bows and arrows. Mm-hmm. And then we changed to cannon fire, right? Before we send in the infantry. Mm-hmm. And then over time, it became artillery. And then we put bombs on planes, and we saw in Desert Storm, we talked about that, 40 days and 40 nights of bombing to soften up the enemy before we sent in the infantry guys. And what we just saw with Russia is they softened up, and they started this a few years ago in Georgia and Ossetia. They softened it up the enemy with a cyber attack. So the technology has changed. And so when we saw the cyber attacks, 10 days ago or so, most of us that have studied have shown we knew the ground attack was coming because they were softening up the enemy, Ukraine, with cyber attacks. And they attacked all the banks and all the government sites and all those things. And so it was imminent. So no one should have been surprised that Russia was going to cross the border when they saw that happen.
Right. And it is interesting. If you think about it, I mean, just because it's technology and you don't have to send a plane. And I think it's just, I mean, obviously, I think the rules of war, and I don't want to say the rules of war, but just the basic tactics, right? And those strategies, just like you just pointed out, it's interesting that it's evolved to the cyber world as being that softening blow. I mean, it does show the relevance. And oh, by the way, how dangerous it actually can be, right? If you're not taking, that's why when people are like, I got my bank account on my phone, I got all this, I'm like, man, I got to get that off of there. I only got $12, and I can't afford to lose that $12. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
It's crazy. Well, that's good stuff. So let me ask you this. So it's time you go into the National Guard, and while you're in the National Guard, are you a full-time guardsman to where you're working every day, like on active orders, or are you kind of doing the weekend type stuff?
Yeah, we were doing the 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year in the Air Guard, and that allowed us to go off into the private sector.
Okay,
and
and that's when you kind of did that. That's when you kind of were like, okay, well, I'm going to put my foot out here. I'm going to try and see what's going on before I actually get done completely with the Air Force. I'm going to do some things in this nature to see how this world works.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I transitioned off active duty and went into corporate environment. And again, that was an eye-opening experience because, one of the very first things that I saw in the corporate world really is a dearth of leadership. And, many, many times we see that chief financial officers become CEOs. And that's all well and good. And there's no offense to the numbers guys, finance people, and no offense to any of those folks. But, leadership is a lot different than just, hey, we got to make our numbers. That's important to publicly traded organizations. Yeah, I get it. I'm on a board now of an organization where the president of the organization, the board hired, was the former CFO. And I talk about it all the time. There is no substitute for positive leadership. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're in the military. I don't care if you're in the corporate environment, nonprofit world, any of those things. The difference of great organizations, people that are happy to come to work and motivated and blah, 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 all those things. It all boils down to leadership. Yeah. And, it's important.
Yeah. And I would just sound this right now by saying, you talk about positive leadership and you're like that light, right? And I say that because look, we never worked together. I mean, and so I want to make that very clear. I saw you around JCSC. You had already been out for a while. You weren't the guy, but you'd come in and out, whether it be through business, meeting up with old friends, talking to people that you've known, because obviously at JCSC, it's a family. I think that's more so imminent or not imminent, but impressive about JCSC is that it's a family atmosphere. So years after you can go back because you're going to see someone, right? And I'd see you. And I'd see the way you talk to the people that I looked up to, right? Like, I mean, there are some, Bernard McGriff and Mr. Gordon and those guys. Those are guys that I value as friends, but as mentors. And I would see you interact with them. And the way they interacted with you showed me who you were, if that makes sense to you. Yeah, and then I watch you in the Tampa community at different events and to whom you're around and who's seeking you out. And it's not because, in my opinion, maybe I don't know. It's not because of what you can do for them. I mean, maybe it is, right? Because maybe you can do a lot of things for people, but man, you are just that person that you're magnetic, right? People come to you because they're going to, in return, get that leadership from you and that ability to be receptive, empathetic, understanding, and then make things happen because you're an action type guy. You don't just sit back and listen. So I appreciate that. And that's great. That's a great point. And we have a tendency to talk about that stuff as well, leadership and different things, and how does it translate from military experience. And if there's always these conversations of when you see things on LinkedIn, when you look at resumes from people that are getting out, I want to lead people. I'm a team builder and all. And don't get me wrong, that's all facts. but it's not articulated properly, because when you look at job descriptions, they're not looking for a leader who can build teams. That's not the job description. That's an expectation that's going to happen when you get this job that is a project manager for whatever. So so it's just interesting how we try to take that leadership thing that we feel is missing in that space, which it very well could be.
Yeah, I would. No, I agree with you, and I appreciate the comments. And I will tell you, there's, very rarely, you will never see, leadership as a job, right? It's just part of what we are supposed to do. And, the corporate environment, they need it. And when they see it in action, that's how, people get promoted and become into real leadership positions. And so, anyway, we could talk about all of those things for a long time, but I think the thing that struck me the most in coming out to the corporate environment is that there was a real dearth of leadership, and people, as you kind of just described, is people gravitate to strong, positive leaders. And that it's no secret. It's happened for many decades and many centuries, and it doesn't matter what geography, where you are, and what language you speak. It's the case, right?
It is. So you take that out into the real world, right? So you start working in the corporate sector. You're seeing some things that are missing. You're seeing some things that are there. At what point, when did you know that you wanted to own a business? I always ask that question because there's people that are prepared, years before they exit the military, and they're taking their master's or the MBA, and they're getting their experiences in business well before they actually make their first business decision. They know that. Did you know you wanted to be a business owner while serving, or is it something that after you left, you saw a space that I can get in here right now?
Well, I wish I could say I had some eloquent and grand plan, but I tell people quite honestly, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I was in my first company, and fantastic organization, really go get them kind of attitude, David versus Goliath kind of a thing. And we had a lot of military people in the organization. They were growing like crazy. And quite honestly, my boss was leaving the organization to go to a startup company. That startup company was eventually bought by a little company called Google. And my boss now currently does global infrastructure for Google. You see the stuff he's working on, fiber optic cables in Africa and Europe, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But so he left to go to a startup company, and I went into the senior vice president in the engineering shop, and I asked for that job. I wanted to be considered for that job, and I was told I was too young. Which is probably not legal, but I mean,
well, maybe at that time it was. I mean, we're talking 88. No, I'm joking. I'm just
and so, the great news was that most people in the company, this was a company of about 5,000 people. Most people knew that I was going to get that job, and they're like, "Oh, Hugh, you're the right guy for that, and we think you do a great job," and all that. So word got out that I didn't get the job. And so some people in the marketing department came to me and said, "Hey," people I had worked with, I knew. And they said, "Hey, we're leaving, and we're going to go do a startup company. We got some venture capital money out of New York City. And we need a vice president of engineering." And I said, "Would you be interested?" I was like, "Well, if I'm not going to be a vice president of engineering in this company, I can go do it in another company." Yeah, it's smaller and it's a startup, but the great news was, we didn't have to worry about the money part of it and raising capital because the venture capitalists had the money. We just needed to go execute and do what we always did. So, so that's why I say I tell people I'm a accidental kind of entrepreneur because my original thought was I was going to transition and go out into the corporate world and go up the corporate ladder and you know do great and wonderful things. So but you know, and
Well,
I'll be honest with you, I was very disappointed that I didn't get that job. And it's one of life's realities is things you learn in the corporate environment, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
I think people don't take that into consideration, right? I mean, let's. So there's sayings, right? When one door opens, or one door closes, another one opens. This, if you weren't supposed to have it, if God didn't want it, and I'm not saying anything about God. I'm a religious guy. I have faith. But if God wanted you to have it, you would have had it, right? And it's all good stuff to get you through those moments, and that's fine. But it very well could be true, right?
Yep.
But I think what's interesting is that there is some level, and I don't want to say ego because, well, it's an ego thing, is that in the military, I don't want to say you don't get passed over. When SEAC Troxel was on, we talked about that specifically, is we spend time in the military. Sometimes you get passed over for promotion. Sometimes you don't. Typically you get the jobs you want, or you put in for, or within the top, they give you some choices, right? And sometimes you just have to suck it up and do what you do. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But out here, we value ourselves because we've been told we should be valued. And then, oh, by the way, when you're really good and at some point in time you realize it, and then you look at your competition, you look at what you're doing, you look at how you're operating in this environment, then you're a fit. So when you do get a shot in the chest, or your wind is knocked out, it's a hit on the ego. Absolutely. I will tell you this, Hugh, and this is me being honest without understanding the history of you, right? It was the best thing that could have ever happened, because here's what I believe to be true. If you would have stayed in the corporate world, you would have been and done exactly what you set out to do, whether it was at that time or later, and you would have been sitting in a very good spot today if you climbed the ladder. But I only say that because I've seen what you've done since, and it's almost, in my opinion, without knowing, again, as I watch you in the positions you've moved through and done, right, outside in our community, because some may be paid positions, some are volunteer positions, some are things in which you're doing to help. I mean, the CEO,
the CEO
council, right? Yeah, in Tampa. These things that you do, you're raising people up and giving them the ability to do those things. And to me, it's like, you're going to be successful. And maybe that's a fuel to you. Maybe that non-getting that job is kind of something that, maybe you needed to get out of that comfort zone so you could go and take over the world. Because here, look, I'm on your coattails, Hugh. I'm telling you. But so let's talk about that. So was that the start of AC4S, or is that kind of later on down the road?
Actually, no. That company was we used to do ultra high speed internet, and we would sell it to businesses, and which is really funny because 20 years ago we were trying to do gig speeds to businesses, which you can get now, but it was unheard of at that time. And I think we may have been a little bit early, but that's what we were trying to do. But we ended up selling that company, and then I was looking for something to do. And again, people heard I was looking for another company to start, and they approached me about starting a federal business. And quite honestly, I told them no. I was having too much fun, making too much money in the private sector. Why in the world would I come back and go into that military industrial complex?
Yeah.
And then 9/11 happened, and well, that's not true. We decided to do it. I got some exposure to, what some people were doing. I said, well, we can probably make a run at this. And then 9/11 happened, and then we really took off. Right. So I would tell you that it was, again, we knew that the military was going to be active. We knew that they were going to need help. We knew that the joint environment, everything that we were going to do in chasing down bad guys was going to be joint and coalition type thing.
Mhm.
And we thought that we could contribute to that with the technical know-how and, quite honestly, some of the relationships we had built, on active duty.
Sure. And that only makes sense. Again, it goes back into the concept of the organizations that you were leaving at the tail end of your career to understand that in the cyberspace, right? And by the way, it's absolutely amazing that you said 20 years ago you were trying to get gig speeds to businesses. I mean, it's baffling to me because I got a gig to my house, because I needed it, but I don't really need it. But I don't like it to be choppy on this thing, so I gotta run. But I'll tell you, that is absolutely phenomenal. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Donnell Johns. Sergeant Major retired. Hey, look, Donnell, great to see you out here. I always appreciate your support. Great guy, Hugh. And when he comes down to Tampa, I don't know. You didn't get a chance. He actually runs Veterans Growing America, which is amazing because he does a lot of. As a matter of fact, Valerie Ellis and them came out. They were at the McDill. They do all the PX. They kind of run with that with the Rosie Network. Anyway, I'd love to do an introduction with you and him. Guy, he's got it. I love this guy. I'm telling you right now, he's someone in which I felt not. I'm not as close to him as I am with you, Hugh. I'm kidding. That's a joke. But anyhow, so good deal. So I want to I kind of want to talk about that. So I want to talk about the chambers a little bit. So I know I've seen the benefit of AC4S into the military space, right? Obviously, being around JCSE, I've seen some employees over there. I've been around McDill for quite a while. I've seen some things from AC4S, and the value in what you provide is great. My question is this: I want to kind of give this is a very transparent moment for you. You're getting stuff out of me on my show, but I'm going to admit my ignorance, right? When I was leaving the military, I'm not sure if you remember, or we had a conversation. I told you with a few other folks that I wanted to be a professional speaker, right? I wanted to be out there and inspiring and motivating. Yep. And a person, I can't remember the individual specifically, but told me I need to get into speak at the Chambers of Commerce, right? And I got to tell you, I was really confused because I didn't know what a chamber's role in life was. I never had. I was 20 years in the military. I didn't know interest in a chamber. So I'm thinking it's like some arm of the government. I don't really know. So I start looking at all these chambers and I'm like, there's so many, right? Yeah. And then I started making calls. I mean, there's minority chambers, whether it be Hispanic, African American, the LGBTQ, the Greater Tampa Chamber. It's just amazing. By the way, I actually had a thought to start the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And then it was funny. About 6 months later, they actually created the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. U.S. Veterans Chamber of Commerce is awesome. But that's a lot of work, by the way.
It is.
All that being said, what I'm interested in is for you as a defense type contract company, which you do other things outside of that, but what is it when you entered in the chamber? How does that help you from a business perspective, maybe from an employer or employee looking for employment type perspective? What is the benefits of chambers of commerce? Because really, people don't go, and that's an unfortunate thing.
So it's a great question. I really appreciate that. So, I'll be honest with you. People were chasing me to get involved in the chamber, and I did not appreciate the chamber, and I was slow to do so. However, having said that, and every chamber of commerce is different, and you got to pick and choose wisely. But the Tampa Bay Chamber is particularly effective, and so I wanted to get involved there. And quite honestly, the reason why I wanted to get involved was, to a certain extent, to become visible. Because, let's face it, African American men don't have a great reputation. And so I wanted to counter the narrative. And we were very successful. We were doing all this great and wonderful things for our country. I am so, so proud of some of the things that we were able to do as a private company, helping our government and our people in the military. And some of the things that we did was just awesome. We're so proud of that. However, we were tucked away, quote unquote, tucked away in the federal sector, and we weren't really visible in the local community. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get involved with the chamber, so that I would become more visible. We were having all the success And I wanted to change the narrative about African American men. As I tell people, yeah, you'll see African American men on the 6 o'clock news, but those are only the 3 or 4 knuckleheads that did something stupid that day. There's thousands and thousands of others that are not, that are doing great things.
Great things, right?
And you don't make the 6 o'clock news. So really, that was really kind of one of the things that I wanted to do, but it really turned into so much more than that. A local chamber of commerce is usually where all of the business leaders gravitate to. And that's how you get introduced to people. And that's where you build those relationships. And yes, it can have a monetary impact. You monetize the relationships that you build. We talked about the CEO Council, and I'll give you a perfect example. A bunch of us got together, and quite honestly, we played hooky on a Friday afternoon. We were going to go down to the boat show and go look at boats. And we sat and had lunch before we went down there. I don't know, it's probably 10 or 15 of us. And one of the other CEOs was griping about the tech support that he was getting. And I said to him, hey, that's what we do, right? That's what we do, right?
Well, that's what I do. I'm right here. You're talking right to me.
And he goes, well, I thought you did, only the military stuff. And I said, yeah. Well, we sold that company, and I'm really focused on helping companies like yours. And he goes, well, do you want to do my company? And I said, I would love to do your tech support. Yeah. And that was the entire sales cycle. That's it. Right. In the federal sector, there's RFPs, and you got to put in for them, and it's hard to win them, and they're bigger, they're huge, sure. But it's hard to win them, and it's very hyper competitive.
Sure.
And so, the Chamber of Commerce, the CEO Council, all of those things, and I talked about just a minute ago about monetizing relationships. That's a kind of an empirical kind of textbook kind of thing. But the reality is people want to do business with other people they know and they trust.
Man, listen, Hugh, I got to man, that is, did you see me? I said no. And I knew what you were going to say because it makes sense, right? But so many people just don't get that. They don't understand it, but that's huge. I'll tell you something. I kind of want to jump back into this conversation and go slide a little further back. I loved what you said about gaining visibility for African-American males and for being that. I'll tell you this, right? I'm not an African-American male. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I'm not.
Shocking.
It's shocking. But I will tell you, I get it, right? I mean, I'm one of those guys that kind of get it, and I see it. And I see you in our community. And you represent so much more. And I sometimes wondered about people like you, and it's not that you are an African-American male or that you're a veteran, right? But there are people that are put in places and they are the guy. And in some instances, we're the token people of certain instances, right? Yep. I'm going to be very honest. There's a million times I've been out in this Tampa area. And I promise you, at events that I'm at, and you may not be attending, and some you've attended, but majority of the ones that I'm going to, you're not at, which means I need to change my events. But people will always say, "Do you know Hugh Campbell?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Hugh." Oh, okay, cool. They're always trying to introduce me to you because, well, you're sitting on I don't want to say a pedestal, but you are. I mean, you're in a place of visibility, right? I mean, and so your goal was achieved. I don't want to say pedestal because I know that makes you feel like I'm saying something.
Yeah.
But you're in a place and you're representing multiple communities based on who you are and what you bring to a table. And what I love about it is that you are comfortable. You are comfortable in every situation I see, and I love that. And whether or not that was instilled in you through leadership in the military time or what you raised around to see what a true leader looks like, But I love the fact that in any surrounding, when I see you on pictures with your family, when I see you in pictures at the CEO council, when I see you at something with St. Joe's or whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, wherever you're at, whomever's around, and that's not a picture, that's a video or something in which I watch, because I'm telling you, I'm like a Facebook stalker, but it's not a bad way. But I see this stuff, right? Man, it's just amazing, because the pressure on you, whether or not you feel it or not, or understand it, which you probably do, it's you handle it very well, professionally, in a manner that's good. Because it couldn't be me, man. I say the wrong stuff all the time. I'm that guy. You're like, oh, did you bring him to dinner again?
Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you, I will. I have to give credit to, quite honestly, my time in the military, and getting exposed to a few senior officers who I was always scared to death of, right? You're a young lieutenant or captain, whatever, and you're scared to death of the brigade commander and the general, this commanding general, and all those things. And there was a few instances where I got to, and very first one was down in Panama, when I was stationed down in Panama. And 2-star comes down. I got to be the escort officer, and through that exposure, I just got to see that no matter how busy or highfalutin you think somebody is, they're regular people, and they want to have fun. They want to not worry about whatever it is they're charged to do.
Mm.
And they have families, they've got kids, they've got wives, they've got kids in college and whatever, and they're just regular people. And I think what we can all agree on, one of the things that we can all agree on, is everybody likes to talk about their kids. And again, that transcends time and geography. One of my favorite movies is Russell Crowe and Gladiator.
Oh man, I just watched it like 3 days. I mean, it's one of my. If it's on TV, I'm watching it. Hugh, every time. My wife gets so mad.
and me and my son, we watch it like over and over again. But the whole story of that is, the emperor and the son that he never had. And that's a couple thousand years ago. And so those are things that cut across geography, cultures, time. And if you look at people, literally, and we get to travel all over the world. And those are the things that unite us.
They do.
And people are just people, regardless of if they have 4 stars on their shoulders or a specialist. I don't even know what they call it anymore.
I know what you mean.
Whatever. And you just gotta. I think one of the things that learning in that is, people are people, and people want to have fun. They want to be respected. They want to, all of those things that unite us. And if you can appeal to that and just about everybody, you'll do okay.
Hugh, I got to tell you, I love that. I actually use that, not the gladiator thing, though. I love that. I actually liked what you're talking about in that regard. But talking to many people. So my battalion commander, when I was the battalion sergeant major, she was a female, and she was great. I mean, that's a whole nother story, because we just went. I probably didn't start off on the right foot when I first met her, but the bottom line is, she is one of my dearest friends in life. I mean, I love her to death. I mean, her and her family are significantly important to me and my family. But what's really funny is, because she actually is she could be considered a scary individual, right? Because she's like no joke, like she's about it, right? But I'll tell you, I think it was one of those moments when all that stopped. For me, the fear was eliminated, or even the discomfort of being around her if she was in a certain way, or whatever the case, no matter how bad she was, right? Because I made her mad regularly. But she was talking to somebody, not I, about her, when she had to change a diaper for one of her kids, right? And it was at that moment that nothing mattered. What she was as a woman leader in the military that I would never understand, what she went through as a woman leader in the military that I'd never understand, Appreciate, yes. Understand it, no. I try to be empathetic, but it's very difficult, but I try. But all of that being said, all of these things that I don't know, like I can't relate. There's just nothing. She doesn't like sports. She doesn't like this. There's nothing I relate to. But then when she talked about that, it was over. Our relationship from that specific moment moving forward to today changed completely based on the fact that now her and I can relate. And so you're spot on. I think that is something that you can always look at and just understand, right? Like I told you, when I saw you up in the DC area with your son, I remember your son being a young kid with my son. And now he's like gigantic, right?
Yeah.
But I can see the proud. I can see you proud. I can see the pictures and see how, I mean, it is a great thing. And I relate to that because even my son and I, that we do similar things. I mean, we don't travel to DC, but we can travel down the street on my bicycle. I can pedal it. Gas is so expensive, man. I can't do that.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, but it is great, man. I love seeing it. So let me ask you this, a couple of little transition type helpful things. Oh, real quick, Martha, let me throw Martha up here. Martha is currently a student in 4 Block in Tampa. She's an amazing woman. I'm really looking forward to working with her, but she's a networker. You may have met her. If you haven't, I'm sure you will, because she's everywhere. Okay. Good to see you, Martha. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So here's a couple questions for you. Sure. So you and I have talked, not directly, but I sent an email, asked some questions about potential jobs because this one guy wants this type of job, and you had come back with that. So, I mean, and I could tell through the language of the email that you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen, right? Because there's an understanding that you have of what someone in the military, how that their skills translate in this specific job. Just for everybody watching, it wasn't something that was just like in charge of something. I mean, it was like a significant position at a significant location where you have to have some knowledge about that specific industry, which there's no way he did, right? So I got the fact that he didn't fit, right? But we leave the military and we have ambition. We have desire to work and know our value. But that's so hard to understand based on job descriptions that don't really fit what we know what the hell they're talking about because they're so generalized, right? But but what is it that you would you recommend people go to the chamber? Would you recommend people get out there and talk? Would you recommend people get out there and talk to the industry leaders? Or, I mean, what would you do if you were leaving the military right now? No business desire, but you want to get out there and just learn. Okay. Where are you going?
So, I think getting involved in the chamber is a good thing, absolutely. But you have to pick and choose, what you're going to do, why you're going to get involved. I always say have a plan, right? So what I generally tell people about transitioning out of the military and just really any job, I don't care if you're a private sector person, never been in the military, whatever, you should do enough networking so that you never really have to apply for a job. So they should want you. You should know the organization and the organization should know you to the point such that applying is a perfunctory activity, meaning, by the way, we have to have a resume and a piece of paper, an application on file. It's online now, but but the decision's already made.
Yeah.
That's how you get your jobs. I have a good friend of mine. He transitioned out of professional sports, and I'm constantly after him about getting out there and networking. And he's been slow to do it, but I stay on him about that because that's how you should be getting your job. The whole hiring process in corporate America is very opaque, right? You got the recruiters, you got the HR people, but what you really, 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 really want to know is who is the quote unquote hiring manager. What's the hiring manager really looking for? Yeah, you got to have a job description, but the job description is approved.
Yeah.
And it's approved by the HR people, so it meets all the legal things and all that stuff. And it really, you may or may not really truly understand what they want. The hiring manager is the person that you really need to know and understand what they're looking for. And you may get to that person through the front door, but you probably won't. You're going to get to that person through networking.
Love it.
And you know what it is, what the real job is, what they're really looking for. I mean, they may really be looking for, and I apologize, I'm a technology guy. They really might be looking for a software coder, you know, somebody's sitting on the keys, banging out the keys. Or they may be really having a problem in leading and managing a bunch of software guys. That's radically different.
Yeah. And that's probably more likely, by the way.
Right. So I think it's imperative to get out there, you network, and you're hired before you're ever even submitting your application.
That to me, so Martha, if you're still on here watching, this is why I sound brilliant when I'm talking to all of you, because I take things like this that I listen to and I regurgitate it because it's brilliant, right? Because to be honest with you, Hugh, that's how I got both the jobs that I've had since I got out of the military. It's just the way it is. And I'll be 100% honest. I love networking. And I think that's where some folks really are hesitant because they don't like, they're introverts or they don't like to be out there. And I mean, so it's a personality conflict and all that stuff. But Hugh, I'll tell you, you know, one of the rules of thumb, and I don't know where I've ever heard it. I didn't make this up. I'm not like going to quote myself. Someone said it. I heard it because that's how it is, right? But it's if you're looking for if you ask for a job, you'll get advice. If you ask for advice, you'll get a job, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it works, right? And when it's events like networking at a chamber or a Tampa, it doesn't matter where. I like to be seen, not because I'm on a pole doing some crazy stuff for a table. I want to be seen because I'm just that type of guy. I like to be the center. Yeah, it's not intentional, but I really like to tell stories. I'm a really energetic guy. Yeah, and some people remember me because of that, and some people stay away from me because of it. And I get it. I can't please everybody, right? But I will tell you, every time I go to an event, I'm so amazed by the people I meet. I don't care what event. I don't care what event it is. I've never left something that I didn't learn that a job exists that I had no idea existed before I went there. And I'm like, wait, you get paid to do that? Are you serious right now? That's awesome. Good for you. How'd you find it, right? And they found it by being in the same room I'm in right now. And they found it 6 years before or whatever the case would be. And it's just, I think the military, this is my opinion again, right? So I think we, as a whole, we get a job in the military. And no matter what it is, if I'm an MP, if I'm a comm guy, a signaleer, if I'm an artillery guy, or whatever equates to that level outside, is that we try to stay on that same playing field because we feel as though it gives us the best opportunity to use our experiences and transfer over, which it makes sense if you really like what you're doing. Right. But the thing that I think, I don't want to say bothers me because it doesn't, whatever people choose is what they choose. And I have nothing against anything. I'm not a judgmental person. What I am, though, is don't be so closed-minded, because if you open your mind and you're having these conversations, you'd be amazed that although you're an infantry guy, you can fit in it's not a square hole and or a square peg in a round hole or whatever they say. I always mess that damn saying up, man. It's not as crazy because just like you said, if this and that's where you're exactly right. That's how you get to the hiring manager. I mean, if you go to a job description right now, you might see contact X recruiter. You don't say, here's the hiring manager for this position. You're right. How do you get there is you have those conversations inside the company and someone eventually hands you off to the guy or gal that's going to be the one interviewing you. But I say all that to say, understanding the job description, if I'm an infantry guy, I don't necessarily have to be a coder, right, to lead coders. Now,
that's right. That's exactly
right. If Hugh Campbell wants me to be a coder that leads coders, then that's what I need to be able to do, right? But if I just need to be the guy that understands technical language that can tell you or whoever the project manager is what's going on, well, don't eliminate yourself from an opportunity to be the leader of the coders.
Absolutely.
You just got to figure out that Hugh Campbell wants the leader of the coders. So and again, I agree wholeheartedly, man. Great point. I love the fact that you said that's huge.
Hey, let's go back if you don't mind. And I know we're getting long here, but I want to go back to the networking thing. And I know a lot of people are not comfortable with it. And I have come a long way in my networking, but I think here's a key thing that I would want to share with your listeners is, don't look at networking as you got to go out and meet people and shake hands and make small talk and blah, 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 blah. What you're really doing, what you really should be doing is trying to figure out what you have in common with somebody you don't know. It may be nothing. You may be exposed to, things that you have no idea about, like you just mentioned. But if I don't care if you're from the same place or you went on a cruise and you went on the same ship, whatever it is, look at it as you're trying to connect with people and some basis of some shared experience, where you're from, where you've been. It might even just be sports, right? Your favorite football team. And that's an easy one. Everybody can get behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions.
Not this guy.
Yeah.
Not this guy, Hugh. Not this guy.
Right. I mean,
I'm from Buffalo. I hate Tom Brady.
Well, whatever it is. I mean, sports is an easy one. You can stand around a barbecue and all talk about sports.
Sure.
Really, the networking is you're trying to find something in common with someone else. And maybe it's just the fact that you're there at the same time, at the same place for the same reason. But that's what really networking really is.
Well, Hugh, I'll tell you this. I already alluded to it earlier. I told you that you have been mentioned to me as far as do you know, whether someone's trying to connect me to you or someone's trying to break the ice to say that I know a veteran too. That's happened. I know that. And that's fine. Because look, what you just said, spot on. Let me tell you, whenever I'm a huge Yankee fan, I love the sport of baseball. I love the sport of football. I love all this stuff, but I'm a huge Yankee fan. And every time I go somewhere, because I'm a sports guy, like I work in the sporting world, like I teach life and leadership lessons using organized sports, the foundation to student athletes, right? That's what I do. This is a veteran thing, but I do veteran stuff too. So if I'm going to a veteran place, then I wear something veteran related or some silly. And when I say that, I'm saying whether it be a pin, a hat, I don't wear many hats, but I do something that lets someone see me from across the room that gravitates them to me instead of me having to be gravitated towards them. And then we connect there. And then usually that leads to, hey, Jeff, let me introduce you to Hugh, or let me, and that's kind of how that goes. But again, it's because I can see it, right? I mean, so no, I love that stuff. And that's exactly what it is. And more importantly for me, the skill that I think I've gained over life, and whether it's an army related skill or just something in which that I've just picked up on, I love to hear someone talking about something that they're passionate about, that they want to do, that they're looking to do. And it's while they're doing that, my mind is crazy as it is, because I could probably just talk for years, right? But it's honestly just hitting, okay, who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know? Bam, and it stops. You need to meet X. And to me, that's, and to be honest with you, when someone says, what do you have to offer me? When people are looking at, I can't offer you money. I don't have a job yet. I can't offer you this for sitting down. Listen, what I can offer you is my Rolodex of thoughtfulness. And what I mean by that is I might not connect you to the person that's going to make you a billionaire. Because if I could, I'd be a billionaire. I don't know that guy. But what I do know is that if I can connect you to somebody that you can get a positive read on that individual and something positive comes out of that, I don't necessarily care that you give it back to me. What I do care about is that you, in turn, give that same level of thoughtfulness to somebody else that is in your position right now. And then, and that's, I promise you on everything, Holy Hugh, that is why I connect the people I do. I mean, could there be monetary gain from it? Yes. Could there be friendships and relationships gained? Yes. Could there just be a great opportunity for someone that you just want to see do great things happen? Yes. All of those are wins. Every one of them. So to me, any one of those things happen, all three of them happen, whatever the case would be, I'm winning. And so are they. And that's important to me, but that's great. So any more tips or anything that you would have that would say, hey, the other thing besides networking is X, or is there anything else that you would just like to tell the audience? Because Hugh Campbell, you could come on this show every day and I'll talk to you for hours because there's a lot more that I want to learn from you. I mean, you are where I want to be. So in order for me to get there, there's a lot of stuff I got to copy from you. So plagiarism is not.
Jeff, I appreciate that. You're too much. I think I stress, leadership. That's especially coming out of the military, and I think everybody knows a good leader when they see it, and everybody knows a bad leader when they see it. Mm-hmm. So, you know what to emulate. I think the networking stuff is so important. And then there's what you just talked about is helping people. I think I believe in karma, right? And all of those things. And if you're giving advice, trying to help people, that's going to come back to you in spades, right? So,
and the thing is, Hugh, I'm just going to share this with you, and then we could wrap it up. But I want to tell you, so I've probably over the past, I don't know, 15 years, I've probably stopped at more accidents than I can imagine. I've pulled more people from vehicles. I've had people die in my lap on Dale Mabry. I've pulled, I mean, it's, and I'm not like, and this is not a pat on the back for me, but my wife specifically, because sometimes she'll be in the car and I'll stop and she'll be like, "Ah, come on, don't get out because it's dangerous because there's cars or whatever." And I get that. She gets frustrated a little bit because I put myself in a situation. This is not a clap your hands because I'm a hero. The thing that always crosses my mind every single time is that if my son, my daughter, my wife, my mother, my brother, my cousin, my friend Hugh, if they were on the side of the road, would someone stop? And if I stop all these times, I'm hopeful that the karma that you discuss, that's why I do it. And maybe that's the bad way to look at it, but I tell you, I kid you not, I've had
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's horrible, but I do it because I really believe that it will come back and hopefully help my family. I don't care if they stop for me. Let me be. I'm probably gonna be a little bit messed up if so just leave me alone. But no.
Well, that's not a bad thing, and some people would probably fault you for that, but I have no issues with that. I think it's a great thing. And you've been very self-deprecating, but you've done very well, and you are a leader and a role model, and you're helping people, and you'll be fine. So don't worry about any of that stuff. And I always tell people that are transitioning, yes, there's some stress to it, but you're about to enter one of the most exciting times of your life.
Hugh,
on the other side.
Quote there, man. I loved it. It was coming. That's why I said Hugh, and I knew I could listen, man. I'm telling you, I've already you've said some things, and I'm ready for them. I mean, and I knew it was coming. So I was like, Hugh, here it comes, bam, and you killed it. That's a home run right there. Let me tell you this, and you're right. So, and again, this is something in which when I talk about trying to find relation with somebody, I did not stress when I left the military. I promise you, this is not me because I'm beating my chest. The only thing I think I stressed on is some business stuff because I was doing business about 135 miles an hour for about 785 miles in the wrong direction, right? So I'm kind of learning on the fly, but not a big deal. But as far as the transition, I gotta be honest with you. I made a conscious effort to decide to leave. I weighed my options. I prayed on it. I talked to my wife about it. We communicated thoroughly. I talked to my older brother, who is usually the voice or reason for me. I told him why I wanted to do the things I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted to be. And the good thing about that, Hugh, to be 100% honest with you, is I'm still there where I want to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not in the success realm from a business perspective where I can either, do this or do that. And that's, to me, it's not about that, truthfully, but I'm still pursuing it. I'm still loving the pursuit of it. Oh, by the way, I'm here with you. I mean, how could this right now not equal success? I mean, the way I look at it, man, I mean, it's not about the people in which I've got to talk to me. I get to talk to people that I shouldn't be in the same room with sometimes. Like, sometimes I have to pinch myself and be like, man, is Hugh Campbell really, is he here? Like, I'm touching my computer. But
You're killing me. You're killing me.
Hey, but I genuinely appreciate what you do for our community, what you do for your community, what you do for the people of the Tampa area. One last point, because I did want to hit it earlier and I just reminded myself, I find it interesting how you have been able to bridge the gap. And what I mean is I always hear, maybe it's not you, us, them, transitioning service members, the civilians don't understand us. So we put this barrier up against them and us. Meanwhile, they're working really hard to be like sufficient in life. They don't need us, not to say they don't need us, but they're doing fine. Mm-hmm. They're not opposing us. It isn't us versus them. We do so, and you do such a good job of showing that. No matter if that's your intent or not, you are in the civilian space with civilian folks that have no military understanding, but have a business understanding, and you're bridging the gap for people like me so they can understand where I'm coming from in a lot of ways. And I appreciate that. But I always try to break down that wall. Listen, we weren't in Shawshank Redemption. I mean, maybe not the movie, but Shawshank, right? We were institutionalized, maybe, but we've been able to leave the bases. You know, we've been able to we've been able to shake hands with like human beings. So it's not a us versus them mentality. And if we have that, it's just wrong. I get frustrated when I see that because there are so many things they can teach us and so many things we can teach them. Absolutely. And when we do it together, oh my goodness, man, we're unstoppable, all of us together, right? It's just a great thing. But
couldn't agree more.
I want to thank you for your time, taking your time to talk to us out here, for communicating with me. I really appreciate the way that you are responsive. I know you're busy. I don't think people quite understand it. I do. So when I send you something, you don't respond for 6 months, I'm not upset. That's never happened, by the way. I'm just saying, if you didn't respond for 6 months, I'm not mad at you. You're follow him on LinkedIn, and I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see this guy everywhere, which is great.
I tell people, don't be offended, just be persistent, because it's a lot going on. So
I got a post on LinkedIn right now. I haven't pressed send yet.
Yeah.
And now you led me because you said a word, and this is me. And I know you want to leave now, but you can't because I got to ask you this question because I'm about to press send. So anybody that's watching it, you're getting a preview of what I'm about to post on LinkedIn. Persistence. Mm-hmm. The question I get regularly is when do I become annoying? And this is my thought process. I want to ask you your opinion on what I'm about to say, and then you give your own opinion of what you think is annoying versus persistent. So what I say is when someone's persistent, a lot of times it's the approach in which they're taking that makes people not want to answer them, right? So the bottom line is persistent is pretty much, to me, is re-engaging to get a different result with the same idea without using the same question, right? So saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? That's not persistent. That's annoying. That's being annoying. Persistently annoying. Right?
Right, so, right. Exactly.
How do we tell someone how to be persistent without being annoying?
Yeah. Well, I think, from a very tactical perspective, your target will define when you flip over from persistence to annoyance. So it's going to vary widely, right?
Sure.
Number one, it's going to vary widely. But I think that there is a way to be. One of the things I often do is I'll just say, hey, a gentle ping, right? It's not, hey, I need you to return my call or whatever you need. I need a decision on X or whatever, or pay that invoice. But hey, gentle ping, reminder, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. There's ways to approach it that are not annoying, and you got to figure out, what makes people responsive, because yes, you do not want to become annoying.
I want to give you one example of what happened to me, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I actually wanted to reply at this time, but it was good. So I got a message, one of those LinkedIn cold calls from a lady. She's like, hey, I'm the whatever. And I see you own this business. I'd love to have a conversation to see if we can make blah, blah, blah to make you $10,000 more a month, whatever. Cool. I didn't respond. The next message comes and she says, well, I'm sure you were busy and you couldn't get back to me. So I'm just following up to see if we can make you $10,000 a month, whatever. The next one says, and this is all within a week. This isn't like months. This is within a week. The next one says, obviously you're not important to your company, or you're not the guy who can make decisions. So I'll just leave you alone. Thank you. And I promise you this, man. When I'm on my phone on the couch, my wife is sitting right next to me, and I look at this and I'm like, no, she didn't. And I promise you, I was about to be responsive. Because that's what, because that's what she wanted. I mean, but I tell you, I didn't falter. But I told my wife, I said, "Do you see it?" She's like, "Oh my god," because she didn't really understand the lead up to that thing. Yeah. But I said, "Look at this girl right here. wants me to respect. She just needs me to say hello. And then she could get in and try to actually engage with me. I'm not, I mean, because she almost got me, Hugh. I was like, I had to get the big boy pants. I put them on. I was like, whoa, I'm not important. You're talking
Right.
about important. But anyway, it was, I mean, it was actually pretty clever because it almost worked. So I thought to myself, I have a little bit of restraint. I was sitting next to my wife, so there was a level of communication I could do. But I think to myself, if I was up here typing out something or trying to respond to an email and I got this, would I have been like, hold up, lady, I am important. You're questioning me, but it was interesting. So I just typically, truly, I mean, I like the idea of persistence versus annoying and how to understand how to approach it differently. And you'll like it because I'm going to use a Derek Jeter. I'm going to use a baseball analogy. So you'll see it. I'll tag you in it just so you can check it out and tell me how wrong I am. And it's okay. I'd like the reaction. Anyhow, anything you want to say before you roll out, Hugh? I do appreciate your time so much. I thank you, and I hope to really run into you soon. I know you're about to get busy in the upcoming weeks, months, and year. But I hope at some point our paths cross. Maybe I'll do an event and invite you to it, and you could be our guy, guest speaker, and all that good stuff.
Well, listen, I just want to say thank you so much. You're doing wonderful stuff. I really, really appreciate you having me on. You're doing awesome. Don't, like I said, you've been very self-deprecating, but you're doing pretty good. And there's people watching and appreciate everything that you're doing.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate them for listening to this knucklehead, right? I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, I'm like, I got to stop. Like, whenever I listen to this to edit, man, I'm like, why do they listen to me? My voice is horrible. Listen, in my mind, I sound like Barry White, Hugh. When I listen to it, I don't sound like Barry White. It's all good. All right, boss. Well, listen, I'm going to let you slide. I'm going to throw you down into the room. If you'd wait a second so I can wrap it up, but I'll be right back there to see you. Thank you so much, Hugh Campbell. Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Campbell. We're going to give him a round of applause on the way out the door. Take care, Hugh. All right. Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you for coming. I really do. Thank you for hanging out with us again and spending time with us here. I invite you here next week. Listen, the episode on podcast, it'll be out there on all podcast players. I'll share it here on LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. Hey, listen, share it with a friend. Tell someone about the show. We're trying to grow. I mean, Proper Patriot. Look at up here in the corner. They're over. You know what I can do? Because I got this thing. I'm working this stuff. I'm telling you, I don't know if it's going to work. I got to figure out how to do this all over again. All right, here. Check it out. Proper Patriot. I mean, I got stuff. Listen, I want to show you some cool stuff. I'm just learning stuff. I can slide myself for anybody that's watching. I can put me in a corner. Hey, look, bottom line is this. We're doing great things here on the other side, and we're trying to get things to get experiences out there. Listen, there's about 7, 8, 9, or 10 brand new transition related podcasts that are out there. They've started within a 12 to 24 months. Love them, like them, share them, listen to them. People tell me all the time, why are you going to share your competition? It's not competition. We're all sharing value. We're all sharing knowledge, and not everybody that listens to me is going to listen to them, and vice versa. We need to get the information out so people have good transitions. They can be successful in life after the military. I'm not greedy. Bottom line is, you don't have to listen to me, but someone's out there that has a great story that's waiting for you to hear it. So go search them out. If you want to find them, I'll put them on a post, and you can look on them on LinkedIn. And hey, listen, I do appreciate you. I appreciate you taking your time. I appreciate you sharing and liking and loving and commenting. Martha, everybody that came on today, Donnell, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you again next time on the other side.